Welcome to Whispering Cabins, where the woods are quiet, the stories are eerie, and the night whispers just for you. Settle in and listen closely. Tonight, we tell the story of the Lighthouse Keeper's Tea. The lighthouse at Greystone Point stood alone against the Atlantic winds, its whitewashed walls streaked with salt and time. From the village below, it looked like a sentry guarding the edge of the world. Every evening, without fail, a thin wisp of smoke curled from its chimney. The villagers would see it from their windows and murmur to one another, "He's brewing the tea." Old Arthur Wren had tended Greystone Light for nearly 40 years. He was a quiet man, steady, like the rhythm of the waves he watched over. His coat always smelled faintly of salt and bergamot. Each night at dusk, he would light the lantern, check the glass, and then climb down to his small kitchen, where a kettle waited on the iron stove. He brewed 2 cups of tea, one for himself and one for the sea. He'd pour his into a chipped mug, always with a splash of milk. The second, he'd place carefully on the outer ledge of the lighthouse window, just above the crashing surf. No one knew when the ritual had started. Some said his wife had drowned there long ago, and he kept her spirit company. Others claimed it was an old seafarer's charm, that the ocean demanded a share of warmth to keep its temper. Whatever the reason, the villagers didn't question it. Greystone was a fishing town, and superstition was as common as salt in the air. And as long as Arthur made his tea, the tides stayed kind. The visitor came on a wind-tossed afternoon in late October. Her name was Clara May, a journalist from the city. She arrived in a red raincoat, notebook in hand, and a curiosity that outpaced her sense of caution. "I'm writing about coastal traditions," she explained when Arthur met her at the door. "I heard about you. Tea." Arthur's eyes were pale and kind, but there was weariness behind them. "A harmless habit," he said, "but not one to trifle with." Clara smiled. "You make it sound like a spell." "Not a spell," he replied, "just respect." He showed her the lantern room, the heavy lens gleaming under the low sun, and the narrow steps winding down through stone walls damp with salt. She took notes eagerly, asking about storms, shipwrecks, and isolation. When evening came, Arthur filled the kettle. "You'll stay for supper?" he asked. "Gladly." She watched him pour the boiling water over the leaves, the scent of black tea filling the small room. Then without a word, he poured a second cup and carried it to the window. Clara frowned. "For the sea?" He nodded, setting the cup gently on the sill. The wind tugged at the steam. "She's a restless guest," he said. "Best to keep her content." Clara laughed softly. "Do you really believe that?" Arthur didn't answer. He only watched the horizon. That night, after Arthur retired to his quarters, Clara couldn't resist the pull of curiosity. She slipped from her cot and crept into the kitchen, her notebook under her arm. The other cup still sat untouched on the ledge, the tea gone cold, the surface shimmering faintly in the moonlight. "Superstition," she whispered. She reached out, lifted the cup, and poured it into the sink. For a moment, nothing happened. The sea was calm, the night still. She felt almost foolish. Then came a low sound, a hum, deep and rolling, like a sigh through the stone foundation. The window pane trembled. Outside, the waves began to stir, white foam curling in the darkness. Clara pressed her hand to the glass. A chill ran through her fingers. It felt as though something vast and ancient was shifting beneath the surface. Then came the whisper. At first it was only the wind through the cracks, soft, uncertain. But it grew clearer, shaping itself into syllables. then into words. Arthur. The name carried through the night, drawn out and mournful. Clara stepped back. Another whisper followed, closer now. Arthur ran, and then, impossibly, Clara. Her blood went cold. The sea shouldn't have known her name. Arthur woke to the crash of waves and the rattle of the shutters. He found Clara in the kitchen, pale and shaking. I didn't mean, she stammered. I just poured it out. Arthur's face drained of color. He hurried to the window, the wind whipping through. Below, the tide was higher than he'd ever seen. The sea raged against the cliffs, glowing faintly as if lit from within. You shouldn't have done that, he whispered. She was expecting her share. She? Clara echoed. Arthur didn't answer. He grabbed the kettle, filled it, and set it back on the stove. The flames struggled against the drafts, sputtering in protest. He worked quickly, measuring the leaves, his hands trembling. Outside, the waves were rising, reaching, almost clawing toward the rocks. Through the roar, a sound came again, clearer this time and unmistakable. Arthur. Clara. It was not a voice carried by air. It was the sea itself, speaking through the water, through the wind, through the bones of the lighthouse. Arthur poured the fresh tea and carried it to the ledge. He placed it down and whispered something Clara couldn't catch. Then almost as suddenly as it had risen, the ocean began to still. The glow faded. The whispers sank back into the deep. Only the steady sound of rain remained. When morning came, the storm had passed. The horizon was calm, the water glinting silver in the new light. Arthur brewed his tea as always, 2 cups, one for himself, one for the sea. Clara didn't stay much longer after that. She packed her things and thanked him quietly, her notebook half filled with notes she'd never published. Before she left, Arthur gave her a small tin of tea leaves. For the road, he said, and for the lesson. Clara nodded. I understand now. Do you? He asked softly. She hesitated, then looked toward the sea. Yes. Some things aren't meant to be tested. Arthur smiled faintly. Just remembered. As she descended the path back towards the village, she turned once to glance at the lighthouse. A figure stood by the window. Arthur, raising his cup in the morning light. Beside him, for just an instant, she thought she saw another shape, a pale shimmer, like foam or mist, lifting a cup in return. Then the sea wind carried it away, and from that day on, no one in Greystone ever questioned the lighthouse keeper's tea again. Thank you for spending some time here at Whispering Cabins, where the light is low and the stories linger. If you enjoyed tonight's tale, don't forget to subscribe or share with someone who loves a gentle chill before bed. Until next time, sleep well, if the night lets you.